without changing outcomes. So this is not about improving outcomes, it's about reducing unnecessary chemo. So a pilot phase was run of about 1/10 of the original patients. It's a huge project. This whole thing cost, I don't know, 30 million euros or more, an enormous collaboration with EU money, company money, EURTC money, grant money, a big, big program just to build a trial. And even then, they did a pilot study with 800 patients to say, will this work? Can you get frozen samples with high-quality RNA? What sort of patients will be recruited? How many are node negative? How many patients enroll and then decide they don't want to do the study? So these data were presented by Emil Rutgers at the 7th European Breast Cancer Conference. So I'll just run it through you. Firstly, yes, it works. You can find patients and clinicians willing to recruit. The frozen samples can be shipped to Amsterdam for the gene signature. But the kind of patients recruited were not the same as in the original series. They tended to be older, more likely to be ER positive, less likely to be HER2 positive, smaller cancers, and that may, of course, be just changing demographics. And so in the end, instead of expecting 2/3 to be high risk, just under half were, 42.4%. However, patients and clinicians did what the trial told them to do. So if the trial randomized them and said, don't give chemo because the genomic score is low, they would comply. So it was going to be a viable trial, but the balance of patients was subtly different. And, importantly, in the pilot study, less chemotherapy was given. So this meant the trial was likely to be able to answer that question. So you can see here compliance was extremely good in the pilot study. So patients randomized not to get chemotherapy. This is the top yellow box. 96% of them didn't get chemo. So a very small proportion of patients who shouldn't have had chemo by the trial, either the patient or the consultant weakened. Vice versa, patients randomized to get chemo, actually 87% of them did. Slightly more didn't. So high compliance, 92% of those randomized to get chemo got it. So the trial was likely to deliver. And then the main trial started. You can see here that it involved screening over 11,000 early breast cancer patients from centers across, I can't remember now, 14, 15 countries in Europe. And of those screened, actually about 6,500 went in. So it's a huge logistic exercise because every single one of these patients had to be able to send RNA to Amsterdam to measure the gene signature, get the result back to allow clinicians to make a treatment decision. The enrollment is shown here. It closed in 18 months ago in July 2011. So the data are maturing nicely, like a good bottle of wine for those who drink wine. And we're left with this fact that this huge trial, over 30 million euros worth of money, many years of development work, a pilot phase of 800 patients, which is bigger than many proper trials, could deliver 6,500 patients into the primary trial. And we will therefore hear, I suspect, in the next couple of years, the answer. Which is better? If your genomic signature and your pathologist disagree, which one is right to act on in terms of giving chemotherapy? But it was a huge logistical challenge, big multinational, multi-center trial, changed practice in many places, having to take fresh frozen biopsies. So a huge success to the team who ran it, and I think, therefore, should be applauded by all of us, including me, and the results, I think, will be very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Cameron, for this for showing this important study, which extends over years. And I know that it has a lot of a large number, and about 6,000 patients.
6,600, yes. I think, wasn't it, Carlo?
And it has a good clinical impact on our practice. We wish to leave the questions to the end of session. You have another talk at the end of session.
I have another one at the end, so I'll
yes,
do
for
all
conclusion
the
and questions. Thank you very much.
So, I'm handing up to Helen Westenberg, radiation oncologist, who will talk about radiotherapy within the EURTC.
Now, Dr. Helen